So we've got one package, and I guess before we deal with that, we've got the other random stuff. We've got 3 DVDs. We got The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness, which is a Studio Ghibli related documentary. Rick and Morty Season 1, which I've been wanting to have, but finally have. And then a Peanuts Deluxe Holiday Collection, 3 remastered classics, and each disc comes with a extra. There's no Magic the Gathering cards this time, but a lot more have arrived. Let's see, I don't remember if I showed this, but this is the cover I was planning to use. I think it's from another game, but since I don't know what it is, I'm kind of okay with using that for this deck. As I think y'all might have noticed, it's a Regenerator deck. You can see here, there's 20 foil swamps. I'm going to be taking 4 of them out, but since not all the cards have arrived, I'm not in any rush to do that. And the reason is because these are actually pretty useful in this deck, because it should be able to function a lot better on only 1 mana if it only gets this, and since it turns itself into a swamp, as well as others, then that means that it can only be good for certain situations. Tortured Existence arrived. Dark Rituals. Okay, so these aren't foil, but most everything in this deck is, just because most of them are cheap, and its predecessor was. So I went with From the Vault Dark Rituals because I have Mercadian Masks. There's supposed to be 4 blood pets, but the person I ordered it from only had 1. Neglected Dimension, they only had 1. Only shipped the 1, and it was only until I asked when they're like, oh, we were supposed to contact you. It was annoying. 3 more were ordered. Bog Witch. It's very fun. Entomb is, of course, the giveaway that it's a Reanimator deck. Buried Alive is an older, somewhat bigger version of Entomb, but the 2 allow for searching. Exhume is actually a nice, cheap beginning of the game resurrection, because chances are your opponent does not have any creatures, while Reanimate is a costly but cheap one. You can kind of see here, there's these 2 are promos, F and M, whereas these 2 are simply from Graveborn. New Avatar of Woe, because I have one before, but, you know, got a foil one for this deck. It's kind of tricky to see the foilness except in certain angles. Pestilence Demon, Necropolis Regent, Lord of the Void, Demon of Deathgate. You know, these 5 I've shown before. So, anybody who is curious about that, there you go. That's... You're caught up on everything. You can see there's 2 sleeves left because there's 6 cards remaining. That's 2 Recurring Nightmares, 3 Blood Pets, and Hullborn Berghest. So, getting to anime, the package is a little on the soap side on account of the fact that it's quite wet here. Good thing these are all new DVDs and thus are protected. I guess we can just start with the order we have here. First of all, Violence Jack arrived last week, day after we recorded the update, of course. It says complete OVA collection. You can see down here that it says it has English and Japanese audio. I guess it says region 1 there, so it is region coded. And this is the disc itself, and I was asked a question specifically about this, and that's regarding whether or not it has a new dub on it. And I can't say for certain, but I did search up a YouTube video that was posted 10 months ago, and I compared that side by side with this. So this has the same dub as that, at least that one episode does. If there's anything else that was different, I wouldn't know, but it looks like it's the old dub. The only thing I noticed was, at least compared to the YouTube video, the balancing of the voices versus music seemed better on this in the one episode I watched. Oh, next up we've got Space Dandy, and this one has been one that's made rounds. This is season 1. He's a dandy guy in space. And like I said, this I think would be one of this month's many notable releases. First of all, I definitely hear something in there. as usual, I don't remember what I order, so it's always a pleasant surprise to find out what I got myself. I have no idea what this series is actually about, but if I remember right, it was from a Cowboy Bebop maker or something. This is about right. There, that's supposed to go like that. Whereas this one is like that. Well, regardless, it's one I'm curious about, so it's definitely a priority to watch. So well, there's a lot of priority this time, and we'll see what I feel like. Let's see, I guess, CC, Space Dandy, from the team that brought you Cowboy Bebop. Okay, well, I guess that answers that question. Season 1, episodes 1 through 13. He's a dandy guy in space. This looks like the same stuff. I guess I didn't zoom in before, but this is region A and B, which we haven't seen a whole lot of. This, as a standard, this is English and Japanese dubbed. Wouldn't expect any less from Funimation, even though they occasionally do different. Let's see. This the DVD. I was like, oh, there's a disc missing. There it is. We found it. DVD disc 2, Blu-ray disc 1, Blu-ray disc 2. Art on the back side. Alright, and obviously since it says season 1, that means that this isn't the everything of it, but it does mean that this box was designed to hold 2 of them, so hopefully that's enough. Next up is Yakitate Japan, and I've mentioned this one a number of times. This is a series I've really wanted to have come out here. It's well, if Naruto were about baking bread instead of ninjas fighting, it's basically a shonen bread baking competition sort of anime. It's fun. From what I remember, it was fun, at least. So this one is also a really high priority. There's a part of me that might put off watching it simply because parts 2 and 3 haven't come out yet, and I don't know if I want to put off. I don't know if I want to include interruptions. But that said, I don't know. I'll make these decisions as I go, as I usually do. I forgot that I need to open this. What can we say about the back? I would do not forget to check out the DVD-ROM on Disc 5, which includes liner notes in a fresh PDF. That's interesting to know. Just double checking, because this is what I would expect, especially as a Nozomi release. It's Japanese subtitles, or Japanese language English subtitles, so it is not dubbed. But that's okay, because sometimes that's what it takes to get things out here. Yeah, there's where it says Nozomi. And now, taking a look at the inside, that's a little... Alright, 5 discs. I guess it's probably saying that it's not just the files on the 5th disc, those are also there. Which I'd probably have discovered anyways, just because I would be ripping all of them. Oh well, next up we've got Unbreakable Machine Doll. Art booklet inside plus 6 new OVAs. I don't know much about this series, but it's a very fascinating name. I noticed that it is region A and B on the back, and of course as a Funimation release we're seeing English and Japanese dubs. Let's see, with this out of the way, what does the back of the box look like? And I have no clue what I'm looking at character-wise, which is as expected since I have not I haven't watched it yet. I don't even really know what it's about. People do look a bit beat up. So this is episodes 1 through 7, which is a DVD version. This is episodes 8 through 12, which would be the second DVD version. See, we'll leave that sticking out because in between the two there's this little booklet, and that's Very Naked People. I don't know what to think about the anime. It looks like it should be a nice, don't have to think about it sort of anime. 1 through 9 and 10 through something or the other, 10 through 12. So this would be the Blu-ray version. Now we'll get that in there. There we go. Ouch. I wonder what's poking me, because I can't quite tell if that's actually something I... Oh well. Next up we've got Outbreak Company. And again, it's an interesting name. There's a lot. I really like all the anime released this week, which is unfortunate because I might not be able to finish them all. Let's see, Blu-ray version, region A only. Part of the reason I'm also curious is that I noticed that Sentai had dubbed it, which, you know, they don't tend to do. Just because they dub it, though, doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Talk about that later. But it means that they kind of expect to get more out of it if it's dubbed. But for now, we're just going to look at the company. So as is usual for Sentai, yeah, there's 3 discs in here. So I can see... it looks like those are all 3 different characters, which makes me think that this one might not be the same artwork, but I don't know which ones are important. But no, as we can see, obviously the disc 1s are the same. And this time, Sentai decided to make the second discs the same. Which is pretty good. And last but not least, we got Ranma Half season, or set 5. And even though I've not watched this far into Ranma and it started getting repetitive second or third season when I was watching it, this is actually still a really nice addition because, the previous Ranma sets have been neat, but this one, other than the first one was the most pretty, but this one's actually pretty good too. The gold on the yellow is pretty interesting, but the character wearing red is a nice contrast. Now, unfortunately, this is also this little bit of blue there. It was also making it really pretty, but since that's not part of the disc itself, I'm just going to take it off. It's held on by the standard sticky stuff. I'm wondering if there's any information worth looking at from there. Obviously, I'll save it because it could be useful later, but we can see that the next set will be purple, I believe. And every version of this that's been released so far has had a Ranma's dad on the back. I do like that watercolory manga-y sort of look. It's not really watercolor, is it? I don't know. It's something. It's kind of pleasing. So this is the same as the back of the case, and if we take a look on the inside, the discs are pretty simple. This one's a little loose. There we go. It's not wanting to get into place there. Huh. And we've got 2 booklets. Again, the gold on yellow is actually kind of neat. Looks like we've got episode information. Yeah, I just don't ever remember. Recognize that. That's like on a box set or something. So, I guess before I continue on, let me see Yeah, here they are. I think I've done this before, but it just occurred to me that I should probably get a Ranma sets 1 through 5. This is Blu-ray release, of course, and like I said, this one was just the nicest, I thought. Blue's okay, but I guess the problem here is the outfit just doesn't work as well. That one's not bad. That one's not bad. Actually, the red does contrast well with the green, but again, I really like the way the red contrasts with the yellow a bit more. As you can see, the back of the sets have this color thing going on. So that's why we can see that set 6 is going to be purple. Assuming, hopefully, that it gets released like it should. Alright. I think that's all of this week's anime DVDs. It's actually, again, it could haul. I guess I mentioned liking all of them, but Violence Jack, I don't know about yet. I know from the little bit I fired up it would be very interesting to watch, but well, blah, 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 I'm talking, and that's this week's anime DVD collection update. So I mentioned last week that I had started watching Genshiken 2nd Generation, and naturally I finished it. I mean, even if it's a slow anime watching week, I still do make progress watching some anime, right? In this case, I thought it was pretty good. It's kind of hard to talk about because there's one element that's kind of a major overall element that I don't really want to spoil by talking about it. But overall, it was a good series. The reason I kind of react a bit there is because I'm also reflecting on the fact that it strikes me as maybe not being for everybody, kind of along the same lines that the first 2 seasons were, if I'm remembering them right. Like, the pacing is definitely a lot more relaxed, but at the same time there's interesting content being thrown our way. It doesn't feel like the situations update as much as they really could, but at the same time the series kind of covers many subjects from a more thoughtful adult perspective, I guess. And it makes a lot of sense because Genshiken is a club in a college as opposed to a club in a high school. And naturally, if an anime is going to put itself above the high school range, then they're going to try and approach things very differently if it's otherwise the stereotypical subjects. And that's about all I remember. I didn't do my rewatch of the first and second Genshiken seasons like I wanted to, but before I watched this. So I'm going based mostly off of what few things I can recall and my vague feeling at the time, which was that it's easy to... I found that it was easy to watch. It's definitely always fun identifying anime references because they're all over the place, and I'd like to say they're much better known, but then again, how many people here would recognize the Flowers of Evil reference in the first episode? I thought that was absolutely hilarious, especially given the context, but there's also lots of popular things referenced, such as Bakemonogatari a couple of times, and even video game stuff, although, I don't recognize absolutely everything, but there's a lot of stuff there where the timing was just right. I think this was made... The timing of this being released was obviously close to the timing of the release for a lot of other stuff that I was watching, that I've been watching lately. Hence, I watched Flowers of Evil a couple months ago or something like that, and like I said, that was referenced in the first episode of this. So it's kind of interesting from that point of view, thinking about how the timing of me watching this still lined up, even though a lot of those series are really old for people, I think. And I guess I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but again, I can only really compare it to my vague recollections of the first 2 seasons, and I felt like it was in line with those thematically, and I guess I wouldn't say it as strongly as thematically, because I don't know if I've got a good feel of that, but it just felt like the pacing, the approach of subjects, its thoughts, a lot of that stuff kind of felt like this was more Genshiken. So there's that going for it. And this was adapted from an additional chapter in the manga, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's all good. So, after I finished Genshiken 2nd Generation, I started up Leviathan The Last Defense. Partially because, there's some visual curiosity about the cover, and it's just one of those ones where, since I don't ever read what any anime about, and I try to stay away from the ratings so that I can just watch something that piques my interest. I don't know, that's why I chose this, and also because it was dubbed, and I was doing a couple of other... Well, I guess I'll talk about that in a bit. So, considering the anime itself, I'm about 2/3 of the way through it, and it's very strange. You can kind of feel that the anime is a little off in some ways, I guess. But it's not necessarily bad. I've talked about how you kind of got this range of anime where you got these really feel-good ones where your main characters are in a town where no real confrontation ever happens and everybody's happy, and even main overarching conflict that doesn't really exist as strongly as it does. It's a little contrived because the characters are a bit artificially everybody and everything is good. Everything is awesome. And you got others that play around with that concept, like everybody's nice sort of thing, except that then they include an actual conflict. And that would be probably more like where your magical girl stuff lines up. And based on the way this one was flowing, I was kind of expecting the conflict isn't real sort of stuff, but based on the opening and where it goes, it's kind of in some weird place in the middle. I think that may be why it's not rated so high, is because it's very strange in that regard. Actually, it's very strange in multiple ways. Because within the context of the universe, I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to know and not know. And some of it seems contradictory, like I think I started hinting at before. And one example of this is the red girl is the daughter of a famous mage. But in one of the... before the opening explanations of the world thing, it mentioned that men and women were the ones to hold on to evolution, something or the other, and the men evolved to be physically strong while the women evolved to be magically strong. And the contradiction there is that it's her father that's the great mage, even though they were just saying that women have a tendency to. And then, of course, her brother... we've not seen much of him, but they give the impression that he's very knowledgeable mage-wise. And so there feels like an interesting... and this isn't interesting within the context of the universe, but rather interesting from the point of thinking about the anime. There seems to be a bit of a contradiction there. And I'm not sure what to make of it. It's something that I just sort of ignore. It's just like, yeah, whatever. But it would seem to me that if women had a more magical ability, that they would be the ones who tend to be the archmages. And if that wasn't the case, such as in the case of her dad, maybe that's the reason her dad would be a famous mage or something, you'd think that a story would intentionally play with that concept a bit. But it doesn't. It just was something mentioned in passing, which... I don't know. The truth of the matter is there's still world revelation stuff going on 2/3 of the way through it, and so as I finish these last 4 or 5 episodes, maybe I'll have a better idea, but I don't know what I'll be able to talk about regarding that, since it would be definitely spoiler. But it's been strange. Yeah, it's hard to tell what to make of it. Oh, and then there's the other strange thing of... I think they started referring to them as dragon people, and the people talk about getting wet down to their scales if they get too soaking wet or something like that, because the water mage splashed everybody with water on accident or something. And we've seen these characters take off what looks like clothes down to what has a general shape of underclothing, swimsuity sort of stuff, and so it's real confusing because my first impression would be that that was actually them as naked as they could be, but the anime doesn't necessarily explain that other than one creature being kind of embarrassed seeing the main characters that way. It's very strange. Very strange. So, I guess the reasons why it was a slower anime week than usual is because of Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Obviously, I had things to complain about last week, and I've mostly avoided doing a whole lot of that stuff. I mean, like I said, there's some of it where it was probably... there were interesting ideas mixed with kind of obviously bad ones, where it might have been okay as an experiment, but bringing it back, I guess, didn't work. And I'm talking about the Kezu, which I think was actually dumb. There's neat things such as it could sneak up on you, but in the context of I'm wrestling with a monster, you don't feel all that much accomplishment fighting a Kezu, because it's... I don't feel accomplishment fighting it. Anyways, I'm past that stuff, and there's hard monsters and whatnot. I'm still in the low-rank caravan stuff, because I guess I slowed down to construct all the different longswords I could, because I want a variety of elements. And I think the next monster I fight will give me my first poison longsword if I can repeat it. It's an expedition quest, so I don't know. We'll find out. But obviously I've been playing a lot more Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, and I think the reason it really took off this week it basically comes down to when my friend was over last week, he was actually doing a good enough job playing it that he was a little bit ahead of me, which of course creates the inspiration to keep going and do good, do better, whatever. I actually got the green light. But I haven't done only Monster Hunter. It's just been mostly that, because I think the only other thing was I did watch Watership Down. I actually thought it was a pretty good movie. I wasn't quite sure what to think at first. Kind of a neat rabbit origin story, and then but even before that finished, I started realizing that's a really good way to begin the movie, because it sets the tone of the movie very well, which is rabbits are prey, essentially, and it comes off as a rabbit creation story, from the point of view of the rabbits themselves, but it explains kind of the theme of the movie, the feeling that you should have while watching the movie, and it's not a definitive overarching story. You don't watch it and say, okay, that's the bad guy in the castle, and oh my god, that bad guy is even worse than we thought. Oh, that bad guy's not as bad as we thought, and then the final confrontation happens. It's not like that. It has a bit more of a flow to it, but there is a purpose, and I guess because all the characters are rabbits, and they're not like Secret of Nim sort of creatures, where in Secret of Nim, you know, you had the rats and the mice, which kind of had a very... they were just small humans, essentially. These actually just felt like almost... they were very rabbits. And so because of that, there's definitely a feeling of it doesn't feel like it needs an overarching story. If you compare it to something like I'm trying to remember, Ringing Bell, was it? Where that's the story about a little lamb. If you compare and contrast that doesn't really feel like it's a story about a little lamb, but rather a human that happens to be a little lamb. You know, personality interactiveness along those lines. And so that story kind of needs a different sort of story arc in order to work out, whereas Watership Down actually works really well, having this kind of flowing goals narrative sort of thing. I thought it was a good movie. Let's see. Is there anything else I can think of worth mentioning? Because I think we should wrap up tonight's anime DVD collection update with that. Y'all, have a nice week.